In our headlines on this Wednesday, October 22nd, here in South Korea. North Korea fires its first set of ballistic missiles in 5 months earlier this morning, ahead of South Korea's hosting of global leaders next week for bilateral and multilateral meetings largely under the annual APEC agenda. And just days after returning from trade talks with their U.S. counterparts, South Korean officials are back on their way to Washington on this Wednesday for additional discussions. Meanwhile, the National Intelligence Service has linked the main suspect in the murder of the South Korean student in Cambodia to a 2023 drug scam targeting teenagers at a private education neighborhood in Seoul's Gangnam district. North Korea launched a series of short-range ballistic missiles earlier on this Wednesday as South Korea delves into final preparations for its hosting of global leaders for the APEC gathering and more next week. Kim Do-yeon covers this latest display of defiance.
North Korea fired short-range ballistic missiles at around 8:10 a.m. on Wednesday, its first launch of this kind in more than 5 months. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the missiles were launched from the regime's Hwanghae-bukdo province just south of Pyongyang and traveled approximately 350 kilometers northeast. According to local reports, the missiles are believed to have fallen on land rather than in the sea. This marks North Korea's first ballistic missile provocation since President Lee Jae-myung took office in early June. The JCS said it has shared intelligence on the launch with the U.S. and Japan and that Seoul's military is maintaining a full readiness posture. The presidential office also stated that the National Security Council held an emergency military readiness review to assess the launch's impact. It added that the government will closely monitor the North for additional launches and review necessary measures. The provocation comes ahead of the APEC leaders meeting in South Korea next week, which U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are scheduled to attend. Experts say the launch was a message of pressure aimed at the U.S.
When the North Korea issue is discussed during the APEC period, Pyongyang's message is that the denuclearization issue is absolutely impossible. This also contains a message of pressure toward the U.S., telling America to come forward while remembering demands for the suspension of ROK U.S. military drills and the recognition of its nuclear status.
The launch also comes 12 days after a military parade in Pyongyang to mark the 80th anniversary of the Workers' Party, where it showed off its arsenal, including its latest ICBM, which experts say can be tested soon as well. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Just days after returning from their trade talks in the U.S., South Korean officials were back on a plane earlier on this Wednesday, headed for Washington, D.C. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
Presidential Chief of Staff for Policy Kim Yong-bum and Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwan departed for Washington, D.C. on Wednesday once again for tariff negotiations with the U.S. It has only been a few days since the two officials returned from earlier trips to D.C., during which they talked to U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to finalize the details of the $350 billion investment package. Before heading out to the U.S., they told reporters they were going there to discuss one or two remaining issues.
It looks like we'll be tense until the very end. We'll do our best to make sure our national interests are protected until the last moment.
When it comes to the possibility of reaching the agreement by the upcoming summit between Presidents Lee and Trump that will be held in line with the APEC leaders' meeting, the Presidential Chief of Staff for Policy said the government is not considering signing an MOU based only on a partial agreement while leaving key issues unresolved just because of the event. If the trade agreement does get reached, other results that were made during the previous summit between the two leaders would also be able to be announced, as they could not be unveiled due to unresolved parts related to trade at that time.
If the trade MOU and related issues are finalized, the trade results will be announced too. I also expect that many of the key achievements tentatively agreed at the Washington summit can be made public together.
He added that security and other issues are being coordinated by National Security Advisor Ri Sung-rak at the National Security Office. Meanwhile, the impact of U.S. tariffs is starting to show in Korea Customs Service data, with exports to the U.S. for the first 20 days of October plunging 24.7% compared to the previous year. Even considering there were 2 less working days during this period, exports to the U.S. were still down more than 10%. Total exports to all countries from October 1st to 20th totaled $30.15 billion, down 7.8% from the same period last year, largely due to that fall in exports to the U.S. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has yet again voiced optimism regarding trade talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping here in South Korea next week. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed optimism about upcoming trade negotiations with China, saying he expects to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea soon to discuss a wide range of issues. Speaking at a White House luncheon on Monday, President Trump said he believes the two countries will do well in the talks. The remarks come as President Trump moves to impose an additional 100% tariff on Chinese goods starting November 1st. If implemented, the overall tariffs that China must pay on exports to the United States could climb as high as 157%. The measure follows Beijing's decision to tighten export controls on rare earth materials, which Washington sees as a strategic challenge to global supply chains. Despite the rising trade tensions, Trump emphasized that he maintains a good personal relationship with President Xi and expects to reach what he described as a fair deal. He said he hopes both sides can benefit, but stressed that any deal must be fair. The U.S. leader added that a meeting with President Xi would be very successful, noting that global attention is focused on the upcoming talks. Still, Trump acknowledged that there remains a chance that the meeting might not happen, saying that if someone were to call it off, it would not be due to hostility, but rather part of the business process. Meanwhile, Trump also highlighted what he views as the broader success of his tariff policies, saying Washington has done well in trade negotiations with South Korea, Japan, and the European Union. He argued that the use of tariffs has strengthened America's negotiating position, helped reduce trade deficits, drawn in new foreign investments, and boosted domestic manufacturing. Pundits say Washington is aiming to use this combination of high tariffs and direct diplomacy to pressure Beijing into concessions, while reassuring allies that Washington remains committed to fair and reciprocal trade. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back on the local front, intelligence officials have shared a disturbing link between the murder of the Korean student in Cambodia this past summer and a drug scam targeting teenagers here back in 2023. Our Park Jun-han explains.
The National Intelligence Service confirmed on Wednesday that the main suspect in the brutal killing of a South Korean university student in Cambodia was an accomplice of the mastermind behind the 2023 Gangnam drug drink scandal, where South Korean minors were targeted with a so-called drug drink made by mixing methamphetamine with milk. Regarding organized crime, the intelligence agency also dispatched a rapid response team to Cambodia earlier this month under the directive of President Lee Jae-myung, who ordered the agency to eradicate the scam network completely, no matter what it takes. The agency also estimates that between 1,000 and 2,000 South Koreans are involved in romance scam crimes occurring in Cambodia. Meanwhile, the Gangnam Provincial Police Agency is deploying all resources to locate 15 South Koreans who have not returned home and were reported missing in the southern part of Gyeonggi-do province. According to the reports, 2 of the 15 non-returnees were reached and are reportedly being held captive in Cambodia. One man in his 20s claimed he was kidnapped and a ransom demand for 20,000 US tether, or 30 million Korean won in cryptocurrency, was made to his family. The remaining case involves a woman in her 20s whose family stated, "Our daughter went to Cambodia and has since lost contact. We suspect she is being held captive." On the judicial side, a Seoul court found 3 South Koreans guilty of luring a friend to a Cambodian boys fishing group. The main suspect received a 10-year prison term for orchestrating the victim's 20-day captivity, during which his bank account was exploited for fraud. 2 accomplices were sentenced to 5 years and 3.5 years, respectively. The victim, deceived by their false promises, was rescued by South Korean embassy staff in Cambodia. The South Korean authorities are sparing no effort in a crackdown on these transnational crimes, as they are actively collaborating with the Cambodian police and international agencies to rescue victims and dismantle the criminal networks. 박준환, Arirang News.
And in related news, South Korean lawmakers carried out an on-site audit of their embassy in Cambodia amid soaring criminal activity targeting South Korean nationals there. During the audit on Wednesday, lawmakers criticized what they called a complacent response by the embassy, citing media reports that officials told victims to report kidnappings directly to the local police. Accordingly, they highlighted the need for an emergency manual by the embassy to address abduction and confinement incidents involving South Koreans. After the audit, lawmakers of the Legislation and Judiciary Committee also made their way to a so-called scam compound and met with Cambodian police officials to discuss stronger partnership in protecting South Koreans in the Southeast Asian country. NATO's deputy chief has called for cooperation with South Korea to address mutual security concerns, especially in light of North Korea's military pact with Russia. Arirang's Oh Soo-young covers her comments as shared in this exclusive interview.
Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Radmila Shekerinska, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good evening. Nice to be here.
We're living at a time when the United States is calling on its allies to step up, invest more in defence and pay more for their own security. How does a partnership with South Korea contribute to that effort for NATO?
You're absolutely right. There were strong calls from various sides within the alliance that we need to spend more on our defence, because in the present changed global security environment, we need to invest more. We have seen a more aggressive Russia. We have seen the threat that Russia poses to almost all of their neighbors. And it was very important that NATO keeps the technological edge, keeps the military advantages that we have always had. And for this, we need to invest more. We won't change the defense spending overnight, but some of the allies have actually moved to almost 5% even as we speak. And this shows a clear sense of leadership and purpose. We are also investing a lot in our innovation, because spending this money has to come up in parallel with more research and development, more innovation, and adding this innovation into defense and military capabilities. And this is also an area in which we do cooperate with our partners, and we value very much the cooperation that we had with the Republic of Korea. We cooperate in issues such as space, cyber. We cooperate on the usage of artificial intelligence in defense. All these issues contribute to countries being able to spend more, but also being competent and ready to spend better and smarter.
North Korea showcased new intercontinental ballistic missiles equipped with solid fuel engines along with hypersonics last week at this massive military parade that they had. And interestingly, it was attended by Russia's Security Council Deputy President. And what kind of growing threats do the allies face when it comes to Moscow and Pyongyang's military and technological cooperation?
The security of the Euro-Atlantic influences the security in the Indo-Pacific and vice versa. But we have seen these theaters even more interconnected after the Russian war against Ukraine. Seeing North Korean troops present there and fighting on behalf of Russia was, I think, a very clear signal to a much deeper and stronger military cooperation between Russia and DPRK. what was visible on the battlefield became visible also in other fields. So it was clear that North Korea is profiting from experience in warfighting, the lessons in strategy in this new, let's say, warfare, but also from technology transfer. And this practically deeper military cooperation is a source of concern on both sides, in the Euro-Atlantic, but also in the Indo-Pacific. And this is why the security is now very rarely seen just in regional context, but much more globally. But this is also one of the reasons due to which our cooperation with the partners in the Indo-Pacific is crucial, is necessary, and it's beneficial for both.
North Korea is definitely profiting from Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. But at the same time, though, North Korean regime leader Kim Jong-un has pretty much signaled that he's ready to talk with US President Donald Trump. From a Euro-Atlantic perspective, what kind of progress do you hope to see if this high-profile meeting happens?
Well, have no doubts. NATO, in essence, is a defensive alliance. So we have always supported efforts to reach peace agreements, and we have been very supportive to a dialogue on difficult issues. We have supported US President Trump's efforts to broker a peace agreement, or initially a ceasefire, between Russia and Ukraine, and we have continued our support to Ukraine throughout this period so that Ukraine can negotiate from a position of strength. And this is why we believe that it is our duty to help Ukraine in this fight, but our goal is to help Ukraine get to the negotiating table and ensure a sustainable, lasting peace. So this is our policy when it comes to all conflicts. This is our policy when it comes to issues of global security.
Your trip to the Republic of Korea falls upon Seoul's annual Aerospace and Defence Exhibition, ADEX 2025. What's been most interesting for you so far, and what do you hope to gain from your visit?
Actually, I was really impressed by not only the potential of the Korean defense industry, but also by the strong links that they have with a number of NATO allies and companies within NATO countries. So it's not something that has never existed. It is something that is ongoing, and I think that there is satisfaction on both sides. But as we said at the meetings with ministers and Korean colleagues, we can always do better, and we can really increase this cooperation for the benefits of both Korea, but also NATO.
Thank you very much for your time today and for making time for Arirang, Madam Deputy Secretary General.
Thank you, and I really appreciate your interest.
Thank you so much.
The international gold spot price, which had hit record highs in recent days, plunged over 5% on Tuesday. Spot gold fell to $4,115.26 per ounce as of 1:45 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time, down about 5.5% from the previous day. This fall reportedly marks the deepest one-day drop in almost 5 years. Gold futures also took a nosedive. On the New York Mercantile Exchange, December delivery futures closed down 5.7% from the previous session. A design festival that's marking its 12th birthday has transformed the Dongdaemun Design Plaza here in Seoul into a center of creativity. Our Pyongyang was there.
At one of Seoul's most iconic landmarks, creativity fills every corner. From experimental furniture to pop-up markets and AI-themed conferences, Seoul Design Week 2025 at Dongdaemun Design Plaza is where the city's design spirit comes alive. The festival brings together exhibitions, talks, and visitor-driven programs under the theme Design, Designer, Design Life. The week-long event, held until October 26, explores how design can be found in every aspect of life.
Seoul is known as one of the world's trendiest cities. We are establishing ourselves as category creators, pioneers who set new trends. Just as K-pop became its own global genre, I hope Seoul's design will emerge as a genre of its own.
That vision is reflected across the week's programs, where design is not only displayed, but lived.
This is Seating Seoul, where 100 designers have reimagined the simple chair. The exhibition suggests that chairs can reflect our bodies, lifestyles, and even our society.
At the visitor favorite design fair, Seoul Design Week features popular lifestyle brands like Finca and 60 Seconds, while the design conference gathers creators and scholars to discuss AI, sustainability, and the future of aesthetics. For emerging designers, the event also offers a chance to collaborate with major companies, giving those with limited funding the opportunity to bring their creative ideas to life. That's what the Young Designers Special Exhibition is all about. The design fair is also a space for introspection.
I think this fair isn't just about showing our products to other people. It's about reflecting on how we see and interpret the world as designers.
Beyond form and function, Seoul Design Week places people at the center of creativity.
This year's Seoul Design Week focuses on design embedded in daily life, spotlighting both the creators and the consumers who appreciate with a designer's mindset.
From chairs that tell human stories to conferences that envision the future of creativity, Seoul Design Week 2025 shows that design is a living language of how Koreans express their culture to the world. Hyun-yeong, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Plans for a Trump-Putin summit in Budapest have been shelved as both Washington and Moscow acknowledge there are no plans for a meeting in the immediate future. The delay follows stalled diplomacy to end the war in Ukraine, with neither side showing signs of compromise. The White House confirmed the pause after a call on Monday between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov resulted in no progress. Lavrov said Russia's position has remained unchanged since the August Alaska summit, when Trump and Putin last met in person. President Donald Trump later told reporters on Tuesday he didn't want a wasted meeting, saying talks would resume only when there is something real to discuss. Vladimir Putin had reportedly proposed trading parts of occupied Kherson and Zaporizhia for control of Donetsk, a plan Trump rejected, urging both armies to stop fighting and go home. In Israel on Tuesday, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance downplayed fears that the Israel-Hamas ceasefire could collapse, saying recent progress gives him great optimism the ceasefire is going to hold. Speaking at a joint news conference with Trump envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Vance said he will not set deadlines for Hamas's disarmament or the return of the hostage remains, stressing that both will take a little time. He warned that very bad things could happen if Hamas fails to comply, but said pressure must be balanced with patience. U.S. officials privately fear the truce remains vulnerable after weekend clashes that killed 2 Israeli soldiers and dozens of Palestinians. Vance's trip aims to keep Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu committed to the U.S. brokered deal. Witkoff told Israeli counterparts their response to Hamas must stay proportional, as the next 30 days will determine whether the peace plan's second phase can begin. In Paris on Tuesday morning, former President Nicolas Sarkozy became the first ex-leader of France since World War II to go to jail. He began a 5-year sentence for conspiring to finance his 2007 campaign with money from late Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. The 70-year-old arrived at La Santé prison greeted by supporters shouting his name as police cordoned off the streets. He will be held in an isolation wing for his own safety in a small cell with a bed, desk, shower, and TV, and allowed 1 hour of daily exercise. The former president maintains his innocence, writing on social media that truth will prevail, and his lawyer has filed an immediate appeal for release. President Emmanuel Macron calls his predecessor's detention a human matter, while France's justice minister vowed to ensure Sarkozy's safety in jail. In London on Tuesday, a brain surgery patient played the clarinet during her 4-hour brain surgery. 65-year-old Denise Bacon, who suffers from Parkinson's disease, reportedly showed immediate improvement in her finger movement. The surgery at King's College Hospital involved deep brain stimulation using implanted electrodes to ease symptoms of Parkinson's disease. The patient stayed awake under local anesthetic while the neurosurgeon adjusted electrical currents to the affected areas of her brain. Doctors said her hand control improved instantly, allowing her to play the clarinet smoothly on the operating table, something she hasn't done for 5 years. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
From this afternoon, the early cold has eased off a bit. It was colder than usual in Seoul this morning at 6.6 degrees Celsius, but it moved up to 19 degrees in the middle of the day, going back to the average temperatures for this time of year. As the temperature rose significantly, the daily temperature difference in the western parts of the country widened to around 15 degrees today. Due to this influence of the easterly wind, rain has been continuing around the east coast for days. In addition, the east coast and the south coast of Jeju Island will also have gusty winds of around 15 meters per second. Tomorrow morning, temperatures will start off in the double digits everywhere, with Seoul, Daegu, and Gyeongju at 12 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 19 degrees in Seoul and Gyeongju, Busan and Jeju at 22 degrees. Rain in areas of the East Coast will continue until the end of this week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, those are the headlines for now. As always, thank you for watching.